The cover of this pocket-sized volume features a swirl of orange, yellow, and green. The title, A Brief Look at Inframaterialism, is set in an authoritative yet approachable serif font. What an interesting color palette. It's vibrant, yet somehow leaves you ever so slightly nauseated. On the inside jacket flap, you find a brief summary. What is inframaterialism? A highly theoretical branch of Masovian communism? A collection of mystical ramblings by a discredited revolutionary? Or possibly both? This brief look, TM, introduces readers to one of this century's most fascinating and misunderstood theories in a concise, jargon-free manner. You turn to the table of contents. The guide itself is divided into several sections with seemingly esoteric titles like Effects of Plasm on Root Vegetables and Mental Projection and Transference. There's also a brief introduction about the life of Ignace Nielsen. Known to his numerous admirers as the evangelist of the revolution, and to his even more numerous enemies as the apocalyptic Shrike, Ignace Nielsen remains one of the most controversial and fascinating figures to emerge in the years of the anti-centennial revolution, second only to Karamazov himself. During his unparalleled life, he helped guide a revolution in one country and found a new state in another. Along the way, he committed some of the most notorious war crimes in an era famed for its atrocities. And yet, his most fascinating contribution to history may be the most overlooked. His theory of ideological plasm, from which his followers and successors developed the school of communism known as inframaterialism. If you're like most people, you probably believe that your thoughts reside in your brain, right? That's not right at all. Thoughts don't exist in the brain. They float through the air. Your brain is but a fish swimming through them. Wrong, at least according to Ignace Nielsen. As Mazov's devoted comrade and leading theoretician, Nielsen was responsible for developing much of the intellectual foundation of communism. But his interests and speculations were famously wide-ranging. During his final years in exile, he produced, among other things, an early guide to home brewing, instructions for raising revolutionary children, plans for a universal pictographic language, and a detailed materialist critique of Dolores Day's chess strategy. A true man of ideas, equal to any of the great DeLorean polymaths. But one subject he returned to time and time again was the fundamental relationship between thoughts and matter. We may yet discover, he wrote in his notebooks, that under certain exceptional circumstances, the proletariat's embrace of historical materialism may be so fervent that their beliefs take form in the world of matter as a kind of revolutionary plasm. Woe is right. What's more, Nielsen speculated that this plasm, when it becomes powerful enough, might begin to influence the material reality surrounding it. Hence the name, inframaterialism. Unfortunately, Nielsen passed away before he was able to develop these initial ideas into a full-fledged theory. That work was left to subsequent generations of communist theorists. Building on Nielsen's basic insight, these theorists reached a startling conclusion that a sufficiently revolutionary state might begin to exhibit certain extra-physical effects based on the amount of plasm generated by its citizens. Correct, though certain particulars of the theory are commonly attributed to Nielsen himself. The evidentiary basis of those attributions has always been a point of contention between inframaterialists and their critics. The actual theory is highly technical, but for the purposes of this brief look, TM, that's a fine working definition of the concept. That's because this is absolute idiocy. not even worth engaging with. No, no, no. There's something here. You can feel it. Inframaterialists divide the extraphysical effects of the revolutionary state by the level of plasm required to achieve them. At the lowest, or first level, revolutionary plasm is believed to stimulate or invigorate matter without altering its essential properties. To take one example, during the revolutionary period, many communard farmers in Grad reported extraordinary yields of certain root vegetables, most notably turnips. The difference in these yields was simply too great to be accounted for by mere climate or soil conditions. The only reasonable explanation, inframaterialists argue, is the high level of revolutionary plasm emanating from the commune itself. Even today, in parts of the SRV, there are collective farms whose root vegetable yields exceed those thought possible by capitalist agronomists. Who's to say the farmers aren't just cooking the books? Sounds like obvious SRV propaganda. It's also been postulated that plasm may account for the remarkably full and manly facial hair observed on many communist males. Of course, inframaterialists argue that revolutionary plasm may stimulate human physiology in other ways as well. Oh yeah, we're talking about white-hot communist sex, baby. That's correct. Reports from the revolutionary period claim that the most radically devoted communards were able to engage in vigorous intercourse for up to 8 hours at a time. 8 hours? There's no way. Your equipment would be mashed to jelly. No wonder the communards couldn't shoot straight. They were too shagged out. Hyperproductive vegetables and ultra-horny communards are fine. But this theory hasn't quite gotten strange enough for you. Sexual euphoria. Increased sensitivity to stimulation. If you didn't know better, you'd say this plasm stuff sounds a lot like being on amphetamines. And on that note, you feel like you've gotten the general idea of inframaterialism, enough to carry on a basic conversation at least. But if you'd like to go even deeper into some of the more speculative aspects of the theory, you could always read further. Of course you want to go deeper. What else are you here for? The book fits quite snugly into your palm. It would also fit comfortably into a jacket pocket. You flip forward a few pages until you come upon a chapter titled Mental Projection and Transference. When a community has achieved a sufficiently high degree of revolutionary fervor, inframaterialists believe that second-level effects may be observed. At this second level, certain hyper-revolutionary individuals may even develop the ability to extend their thoughts into material space and vice versa. According to inframaterialist theory, yes. Under suitably revolutionary conditions, that is. Of course, one doesn't need to be a communist to be attuned to the thoughts of your brothers and sisters. It's become something of a folk legend that during their final meeting, Nielsen and Mazov didn't speak a single word, preferring to sit in silence with their chamomile tea, reading one another's thoughts. One of the minor tragedies of the late revolutionary period is that few reliable accounts survive. Much of what we know of the communards' activities during this period come from memoirs and second-hand accounts, some only written down decades after the fact, and of dubious authenticity.
I suppose we do work quite well together.
Your words hang in the air as the lieutenant scribbles something in his notebook. At some point, he realizes you're waiting for him and looks up with a tightly knit brow. The lieutenant looks at you evenly for a moment, then returns to his notebook without a word.
Did I? My bad, detective. Won't happen again.
As we were saying, it's generally believed that these effects are only exhibited by certain hyper-revolutionary individuals, generally less than 0.01% of the revolutionary population. Because plasm has never been directly observed, the exact mechanism behind these effects remains entirely speculative. In other words, there's no evidence that any of this mind-reading stuff is real. Why are you getting hung up on mechanisms? Open your mind's aperture just a little wider. You're so close to true understanding. Most inframaterialists would argue that the inability of skeptics to detect plasm is simply evidence of their own insufficient revolutionary enthusiasm. There you have it, a perfectly unfalsifiable loop. The theory is impossible to disprove on its own grounds, meaning it's hardly a theory at all. This should be more than enough for a stimulating discussion. That said, if you're still yearning for more, you must. Everyone knows. Books save their best part. You breeze through the next several sections until you arrive at the final chapter, titled A Communism Above Reality. When a society's revolutionary fervor reaches the third and highest level, inframaterialist theoreticians have postulated that the laws of physics cease to be laws, more like suggestions, according to some of the SRV's leading inframaterialists. Of course, it's impossible to say what exactly happens under these conditions. No known society has ever achieved the levels of revolutionary enthusiasm the theory seems to require. Some inframaterialists have even argued that it might require more plasm than humanity alone may be capable of producing. In the SRV, there have been attempts to organize certain species of aquatic mammals, as well as a few of the higher corvids. But as of this writing, only human beings have demonstrated the intellectual capacity for revolutionary communism. There are numerous stories from Samara involving bandits or fascist mercenaries being levitated by farmers from the most ideologically advanced communes. Of course, few of these incidents have ever been rigorously investigated or substantiated. The form of these stories also recalls several well-known Samoan folk tales, in particular, the one commonly known as Clever Oleg and the Flying Magistrate. Among known attempts to channel it concerns an interesting series of events that took place during the invasion of Revachol. As coalition forces made landfall, a cadre of Nielsen's most fervent acolytes attempted to compress a coalition-era static with their collective will. According to communard law, these acolytes positioned themselves at the top of a redoubt just over the bay of Revachol. From that vantage, they proceeded to visualize pinching coalition warship debutante between their fingers, a gesture believed to assist in the extra-physical materialization of their thoughts. The communards were notoriously under-equipped against the much better-funded coalition. In any event, it's doubtful even ceramic armor would have altered the outcome. The acolytes, along with the redoubt, were vaporized in an artillery strike before the process could be completed. Picture the lot of them, all standing with their fingers in the air 1 minute, the next reduced to a bloody mist. It's been said, though, that in the weeks following the battle, the captain of the debutante noted an increase in incidents of crewmen striking their heads on unexpectedly low bulkheads. Of course, colorful anecdotes only scratch the surface of what inframaterialists believe may be possible in a truly third-level society. Some have theorized that such a society would be fundamentally unrecognizable, lacking many of the institutions we typically take for granted in advanced societies. including organized governments, financial institutions, and law enforcement. Did that book just say there's no place for you in this future? Others have argued that people living under third-level conditions will be immune to such infirmities as hunger, disease, and mental illness. In some of his later writings, Nielsen himself speculated about the potential for an extra-physical architecture that disregards the laws of bourgeois physics and instead relies on the revolutionary faith of the people for structural integrity. Precisely. Nielsen observed that the financial system operates on the same principle of faith. So why not an architectural system? On the following page, you come across a few black and white reproductions from Nielsen's own notebooks. One sketch depicts a government ministry shaped like a great inverted pyramid, a hectare in width at the top, balanced atop foundations the size of common apartments. Another depicts a leaning tower wrapped in a dramatic helix. The caption beneath it reads, "The Tower of History." Something about that tower looks awfully familiar. Could it be that's what the students were trying to recreate with the matchboxes? In the corner of one of the reproduced notebook pages, you can make out the following words, written in Nielsen's distinctive slashing script. A state that has lost the faith of its people has forfeited the right to exist. There is no more. You've reached the outer theoretical limits of communism, and in less than 200 pages. If you'd like to read further, may we recommend a brief look at Occidental architecture?
You're back. Yes, let's get right to it.
His companion leans forward, ready to jump in. They're impressed that you dove right into the most advanced parts of the theory. Half an hour evaporates and the conversation is still wending its way toward new and unexpected places.
The two phenomena are actually deeply intertwined. Many inframaterialists believe that Pale is actually a manifestation of nostalgia and historical inertia. Those same theorists have hypothesized that revolution may in fact create a counterforce that prevents the Pale from expanding.
Has it gotten cold in here? Your arms seem to be covered in goose flesh.
Well, on that note, I think we can call it an evening.
No, wait. Can this really be the end? You feel like you've just gotten to the real stuff.
Yes. One of our better discussions lately, on the whole.
What do you mean, is that it? You've done the reading, we talked about it. What more do you expect from a reading group? Well, you could always ask, I guess.
We probably won't get a better chance. Honestly.
But it's getting late, so maybe pick the most important question. Come on. We have things to do in the morning. Detective, how should I know what questions you have about communism?
All right, here we go. We're devoting all your available brain cells to coming up with a question about communism. Scratch that. To coming up with the question about communism. The alpha and omega of communism questions. And that question is... The young man gives you a slightly confused look, as though he's sure you asked something else and he simply misheard. No, he heard you crystal clear. Somehow, it sounded even worse out loud. You only said what everyone else was thinking. Look around. Do you see any women here?
He wants to know if women are bourgeois, Stepan.
Yes, I heard him. Give me a moment. What makes you ask that question above any other? Maybe your problem is that you think it's their job to handle you. You ask that question because you're still under the influence of ideology. That's natural. You're like a fish that's only now discovering that her whole life has been dictated by the movements of sea currents. That's what ideology is. It's like there are these invisible forces everywhere, pushing and tugging you this way and that, and you don't even know they're there. Everything, man. That is part of the communist project, to destroy the ideological structures that reduce men and women to these hollow shells of identity. Do you know the story of Dobrova and Abadanais? The so-called revolutionary lovers, the dual commissars of revolution in Insulinda. Yulia Dobrova came from Grad. Jean Abadanais was born in Reversal. She was brilliant, charismatic, a revolutionary comet. He was her partner and stabilizer, the planet who kept her in orbit.
What became of them, though? There seems to be a blank paragraph in the history books.
It's from them we get the notion of dual leadership, the Decomptage, Reversol's truly great contribution to revolutionary thought. I believe it even persists in some form in the RCM, even to this day.
I had no idea its origins went all the way back to the revolution itself. But it makes sense, in a way.
They died on their own terms, like real revolutionaries. There's a lot to say for that. There's more to it than that. People still make their own choices. It's a matter of being aware of what's influencing them. Yes, that's the question you should be asking yourself.
His companion nods, but offers no further solace. The young man nods, but says nothing. He appears to be distracted by something. He's wrestling with some question of his own. He's lost in his own thoughts. You wonder what silt you've stirred in the bottom of his soul. Of course, the matchboxes. You'd very nearly forgotten to ask about them. Now may be your last chance.
So you really did read all the way to the end. Yeah, Uli and I were trying to see whether there was enough plasm between the two of us to hold up a few matchboxes.
Saying it out loud makes him realize how foolish it sounds.
It was just a little informal experiment. No reason to take it too seriously.
The young man looks at you a moment, then at his companion.
What could it hurt? All right, let's give it another go.
You know what? I'll sit this one out. I don't think you want my skeptical materialism interfering.
Before long, a modest tower begins to rise from the pile of matchboxes. You place every box with the utmost delicacy and precision.
Easy, Uli.
It's holding. It's holding.
For the moment, the higher the tower goes, the quieter the room seems to become. Aside from the occasional comment, the three of you are completely absorbed by the task.
All right, you go next, Stepan.
The young man pushes back his shirt sleeves, revealing the pale flesh of his forearms.
Is it? It's holding. It's holding. Ah, shit.
It's all right, Stepan. That was still very close. One of our best performances yet.
The lieutenant says nothing, but his expression suggests otherwise.
It's fine, Uli. That's enough parlor games for one night. We should clean up.
Well, I think we're probably finished here, Detective.
Wait a minute. If you don't mind, we wanted to get your opinion on something. A few little changes we've been thinking about. Nothing too major, I think. We were talking potentially about relaxing some parts of our admissions process.
I thought the cloak and dagger routine made us seem more appealing.
I thought so too, but perhaps we overdid it, just a little. There was another thing. We were also debating putting up some posters around town.
Though some of us maintain that advertising is an unacceptably bourgeois tactic.
As a noted art cop, you definitely have an opinion on this.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I guess no one could accuse Cindy of having a bourgeois aesthetic.
Plus, I've got the perfect place in mind. Put some more coffee on, Uli. We've got a long night ahead of us. We should probably get Cindy in here too. Oh, and gendarme. One last thing. I've been thinking about what you asked before. About women, you know? Not that it's any of my business. But it sounds like this question is really tearing you up inside.
You're holding it together, somehow, despite everything.
So, good luck with that, I guess. The gendarme returns. What do you need?
Hello again, officers. Have you come to admire my mural?
It's getting late, and it's raining. Time to call it a day.
Good night, officer. We'll meet in front of the shack in the morning.
An old mirror hangs on the wall. You see the reflection of your face in it, such as it is, without the expression. It's just hairy. On the table, you see a bowl of water, a rough soap, and next to it, a small hand mirror. A straight razor soaks inside the wash basin. The water reflects back a vague image of your face. Nose bulbous and red, hair unkempt, wrinkles lining the eyes and forehead. The stash is gigantic. You'll be looking like a pansy without the chops. A fucking pansy. A fresh start looms ahead. Clean yourself up and be born anew. The bed is comforting, if a bit run down. Still, you've earned a rest. The bed underneath you is soft, if lumpy. Waves wash the sand underneath the hut, then grow distant to your ear. In the quiet hum of the organic heater, you fall asleep.
Like a deftly cast fishing net, sleep pulls you out of the world and into its dark shore. The rough mesh chafes, tightening around you, it digs into your brain.
How have things been going for you out there? Helped anyone lately? Saved anyone lately? Murdered anyone lately? Because you know you are a murderer. A disco music listening psycho killer who offs poor people and then forgets about it.
Hear that? You are naive to think he's afraid of his bloodied hands. Soul brother. Oh no, I see inside his amygdala and his hippocampus. The thing he's really scared of is much, much worse than that.
Don't tell him, sister. It's too bad.
They're right. This is their function. To keep you from it.
We're trying to help you. All these processes, these tortures, voices and tremors are all just distractions, flares and countermeasures to keep you from the last dream. The worst of them all.
The last dream will be total annihilation. Cinders peeling off the fuselage. We won't be there to help you anymore, Harry. We will be dormant. You will be naked and alone.
Of hell. An ancient sadness, brother. 10,000 years later, in front of the video rental, there is a warm breath on your face again. Everything is okay again.
Everything is so okay. Your eyelids flutter open for a moment. When you close them again, you sense the light of the room around you. You're back. In 2 seconds, the alarm will ring.
The last thought in your head before waking is, maybe you shouldn't have seen that stained glass window in the church.
Our tenant, the policeman. I hope the waves don't keep you up at night. What can I help you with? Nay, I haven't seen anyone lately.
Because she's blind, which you seem to have forgotten.
This is my little cinder block town. I know what goes on around here.
She's being evasive. She knows something.
There was a murder in Martinez. She might be a suspect. We would appreciate your help.
Would you now? I know how this world works, and it doesn't work when people tell on each other. Ah, I should have known. This is yet another union mess. I'm not afraid of them, you know. We are not in the habit of being afraid around here. There's not much to tell. People come and go. Now, was there something else?
I see, ma'am. I hope you don't mind if we look around anyway.
You should look around your shack. Maybe she's rented it out to others too. As you look at the floorboards in this corner of the shack, it's clear one of them isn't quite level with the others. The edge of a floorboard next to it looks scratched. Hollow space underneath the floorboards is dark and damp. You can barely make out the mixture of sand and sawdust below. Nothing particular catches your eye. Looks like more reeds. There might be something hidden inside the sand though. Something bad. Someone's night thoughts. A last resort. A bad idea. You stick your hand in and start combing through the sand. Dry, not like outside. Fine dust. And then something hard wrapped in paper. A small cylindrical object. You pull it out. A bullet. A 9mm bullet, to be exact, fit for all muzzle loaders of that caliber. Like your own Villiers pistol, for example. The floorboard isn't interested. Maybe the washerwoman is. You have enough to confront her with. It's extra ammunition. She's locked and loaded, ready to fight some cops.
Our tenant, the policeman. I hope the way. Damn that girl.
And without anger, a long and harsh life has taught her not to buckle under pressure.
But you didn't put it there, did you? She did.
Gone and hid things in there? She's usually a good tenant, and not a stupid one either. Yes, I let my room to that Ruby girl. As I've done before when she's been in trouble or just looking for solitude. I've made it clear. We welcome all kinds of people here. She came last Friday, left on Monday in a hurry. What has she gotten herself into, that girl?
That's for the police to find out. Right then, please answer each question to the best of your ability. I'm sure we have a few.
Yes, early with the dogs, around 8 o'clock, I think. I cleaned it, like I always do. No. She's good company, knows how to talk to an old woman. At my age, you don't get a lot of quality conversation, so I really appreciate that about her.
Did she talk to you much during her last stay?
No, she was mostly silent this time, kept to herself. She tried not to let it show, but I could tell she hadn't come to fish. Usually she likes to cast a few lines, but this time she mostly stayed in her room. How would I know? She's a gruff one, but not violent. She doesn't go around toting a gun.
You could ask her about your hunch, that it was a desperate measure. See if she thinks Ruby fits the bill.
Aye, do tell. Exit from what?
The lieutenant stops writing for a moment. He looks at you, then at the old woman.
No, she's a fighter.
Not a quitter, like you sometimes get, son.
Nothing of the sort. Sure, she was no stranger to the bottle. She fit in that way. But I only knew her to have a beer on the beach while watching the sunset. She isn't what you call a drunk. Even offered me some from time to time. Said it was part of the communal life. But I never saw her lose control of herself, the way some people do. Not that I know of, though she was into nice music. She once showed me a few mixtape milieux she'd made. Although I guess she was pretty handy with the mechanical and technical stuff. Even fixed the heater in the shack. You should be thankful for that.
She may simply have kept the equipment elsewhere.
I don't know. Further up the coast, she tried to leave quietly, but the hinges on that door screeched like a cat in heat. Woke me up. I heard her rushing in those heavy boots, heading up north.
It's a peninsula. She might be trapped.
You'll never find her, you know. She knows the coast like the back of her hand. You only just arrived.
I wouldn't worry about that, ma'am. We are persistent.
Are you sure you would rather stay here? Get a nice cozy fire going in the heater? Seems like a better idea to me.
The Fell Electric Mural. You feel like you should go look at it again. Step closer this time.
One thing, officer. If you do find her, please go easy on her.
She really means it. It's an honest plea.
She's a good girl. Whatever she's gotten herself mixed up in,